New Orleans is the birthplace of jazz, which white historians have called the classical music of the United States. But that only matters to human beings because we care about culture. The white supremacists, on the other hand, only have contempt for culture. Because while New Orleans is the birthplace of jazz, it's also the birthplace of a number of white supremacist pseudo-academic nonsense. In the 1920s, New Orleans School Board banned the teaching of jazz in New Orleans schools. Now, as I'm sure you probably know, back then the schools were segregated, at least segregated by law, I should say. So this prohibition wasn't aimed at white schools. It was aimed at controlling and curtailing what the black schools could do. Schools are an important part of how white supremacists in training practice their laws to oppress black people. And in the instances where they can't outlaw something outright because it would violate the First Amendment, they instead try to prohibit it in the schools. Because you can prohibit and ban all kinds of things in schools that you could never prohibit or ban in the general society. And that's the entire point. It's the white supremacists trying to establish what they want to think of as their little domain. And I'm sure that a number of you are familiar with white society's hysteria that jazz was corrupting white youth. That meant white girls. They were concerned that these white girls in particular might be at some jazz club or some juke joint, and why they would be impressed at this vulgar gutter music for the Negroes, and next thing you know, they would be putty in some black man's hands. What was the point? The point is to criminalize being black, targeting our culture, only our culture. Jazz has been called the classical music of the United States, but white society has always denigrated whatever forms of music or anything else that we create. They denigrate it, they malign it, and as you see, they ban it. They demonize us, they degrade anything that we create or even take part in. They do everything that they can to make it clear that anything black people have created or had a hand in the creation of, it's automatically inherently inferior or even dangerous. Then they make up some rules, or better yet, laws, to put in place to ban or even criminalize anything that we've had a hand in. That's how we get lies like Elvis was the king of rock and roll. Everything Elvis did, everything he said, he stole from far better black artists. He did nothing but copy what he saw black artists doing. And for the record, black people created rock and roll. Even the name itself, rock and roll, that comes from black slang for sex. That's part of the reason why white society hated it so much. They knew exactly what it was. And we've seen this over and over and over again. Doesn't matter if it was rock music, which Jimi Hendrix created. Doesn't matter if it was disco, which was just a pathetic, thinly veiled bastardization of R&B from the 70s. And of course, rap music. I gotta hear that if there's like one white producer who was anywhere within a 10-mile radius, they'll try to claim that he had something to do with the creation of rap music. They'll try to make the story all about him. You see, everybody else except for black people are entitled to cultural proprietorship. When it comes to the other aspects or details of these other groups, civilizations and societies and their social norms, that's part of their culture and their heritage, and, well, it shows the contributions they've made, so we should be considerate of that. On the other hand, whenever black people create something, that's automatically community property. And the white supremacist Manhattan Institute understood that they could never come straight up the middle with all of the we're going to criminalize talking about race, which is what they really want. So instead what they did was they manufactured a phony hysteria. They got some paid crisis actors to go to the school boards and to pretend to be outraged and to act, oh, I don't even live around here. I don't have any kids in school, but I'm angry about this critical race thing. I can't even tell you what it is, but I'm angry about it. And what's critical race theory? Any mention of race whatsoever, that's critical race theory. And then people are arguing about something they don't even understand, which is the point. And the white supremacists sit there and say, see, nobody wants to admit that they're in favor of critical race theory. Most of them don't even know what the hell it is. That's the reason why they're saying, it's like, am I going to agree to understand something, especially when I have a white supremacist trying to tell me what he claims it is? But of course, as everyone understood from the very beginning, it was never about schools at all. It was always a racist Trojan horse for what was supposed to be sweeping legislation for the society in general. And so what began as, predictably, some right-wing red state school boards saying, we're outlawing critical race theory in the schools. Next thing you know, on cue, because this was all planned and stage managed, you had the exact same white supremacists who in the state legislature say, and we want to do this throughout the entire state. And in Florida, they're saying, we want to make sure you can't even do anything talking about race in the workplace. Yeah, that escalated quickly, didn't it? They went from talking about we have to protect the kids to, and we're going to make sure you can't say anything at your job either. Only other thing to do after that is to say you can't say it in the home, and here are the criminal penalties. Here's the years in prison if you do. A lot of you have mentioned from time to time, I see the occasional comment talking about someone who's given thought to running for this or that political office. Well, as long as you can get a constituency, there's no reason why you shouldn't. It's time for a lot of black folks to stop thinking about it and start being about it. It is imperative that there be some on-code black people who are on these school boards and every other arena in this society where we can get some black people with their heads on straight to actually be in the room. That's how you get the lexicon of reparations and tangibles and black first into the political discourse in a big way. Show these white supremacists that we can bogart them. That way, the next time some Baumgardner or Christopher Rufo calls themselves going into these schools trying to pull some anti-black operation, we'll be in a position to make sure that these racists have to face the music. Good day, and be one.